This isn't the end, Adrian. I'll find who did this.
He left me a warning. I read too late, so I became him to finish what he started, becoming his dead twin without anyone knowing. Stepping into his brother's life was the only way to uncover the secrets. No police report, no investigation could ever reveal. Using the one thing no investigator on Earth could replicate. His face. Every familiar face, every routine, every conversation carried a truth that no one expected. This is not hypothetical. This is exactly what Alex did. And the closer he got to the truth, the more he realized that the life he had stepped into was far more dangerous, twisted, and unpredictable than he could have imagined. Before we go any deeper into this story, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And do not forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Adrian and Alex Mercer were identical twins, born 4 minutes apart. From the outside, they were the same. Same face, same build, same dark eyes. But from the inside, from the very earliest years that the people who knew them could remember, they were two entirely different architectures of a person. Adrian had come into the world with the particular disposition of someone who takes everything seriously and trusts very few people completely. Alex had come in right behind him with the opposite, a natural ease, a social warmth, a way of moving through difficulty by refusing to let it feel as heavy as everyone else was insisting it was. And for most of their lives, that difference had been the defining fact of their relationship. The Mercer family had been a presence in their city for 3 generations. Not a famous name. Robert Mercer, the father, had spent 30 years turning a modest real estate and development operation into something that shaped the physical character of the city in ways that residents experienced daily, without ever connecting back to the family. Responsible. And into the life he had built, he had placed his twin sons and expected, without ever saying it in language that direct, that both of them would carry it forward. Adrian had accepted that expectation with the quiet, total commitment of someone for whom purpose and obligation had always felt like the same thing. By his mid-20s, he had a corner office, a penthouse apartment on the 14th floor of a building his father had helped develop, and a professional reputation that people in his industry described in almost identical terms regardless of how well they actually knew him. Calm, precise, controlled, and formidable in a way that was never aggressive. He was the version of himself that the situation required, and he held that version with a consistency that most people found impressive, and a very small number of people found isolating. Alex, his twin, had never found that consistency either possible or particularly desirable. He was warm where Adrian was controlled. He was spontaneous where Adrian was measured. He had a laugh that filled rooms and a genuine gift for making people feel immediately comfortable that served him well socially, and had never quite translated into the professional ambition that his father had been waiting for him to develop. He was not careless or directionless in any dramatic sense. He simply had not yet found the thing that made the kind of total commitment Adrian had always operated with feel like something worth making. And the distance between the two of them, not hostility, not rivalry, just the quiet accumulation of missed calls and rescheduled visits, and the gradual acceptance of a gap neither of them had chosen. Clara Whitfield had been in Adrian's life for about 2 years. She was warm and attentive, and possessed a specific, rare gift: the ability to make a private and controlled man feel deeply known without ever feeling exposed. She remembered the details that most people let pass without registering: the way Adrian took his coffee, the topic that made his jaw tighten, the particular silence that meant he was troubled rather than simply thinking. People who saw them together said she gave him something that his professional world and his family, and even his twin brother, had never quite provided, which was the experience of being fully and unhurriedly seen by another person. He proposed 14 months after their first date. She said yes before he had finished the sentence. The wedding was set for spring. The venue was chosen. The invitations were in the design phase. And Adrian Mercer, for what looked to every person watching like the first time in his adult life, appeared to be a man who had finally set down a weight he had been carrying without telling anyone it was there. His secretary noticed it. His colleagues noticed it. Markus noticed it. Being the meticulous person that he is, he wrote, In one entry dated 3 weeks before he died, that he could not continue, that someone was going to get hurt, and that the fear he had been trying to manage had grown beyond his ability to quietly contain it. He did not write a name. He did not specify what he had discovered or who had produced the fear. He closed the laptop and went back to the life that looked, from every visible angle, like a man approaching the best chapter of his story. Markus Hale had been Adrian's business partner for 6 years. They had built something real together, a professional relationship that had become a genuine friendship over years of shared pressure and long hours. And the particular intimacy that develops between two people who have watched each other navigate difficulty and come through it. Markus was set to be the best man at the wedding. He was the kind of person who moved through social rooms with the confidence that tends to get mistaken for trustworthiness before it has actually been earned decisive at work, engaging at dinner, the person you wanted beside you when a room needed to be managed. Everyone around him trusted him quickly. That was the most consistent thing people said about Markus Hale. And it was, in the end, the most important thing to understand about him. Inside Adrian's encrypted laptop folder, however, the financial records told a story about Markus that the social version of him had been very deliberately constructed to prevent anyone from finding. Transfer approvals carrying Adrian's signature, processed at hours when Adrian was not in the building. Wire authorizations for amounts that had no corresponding project in the company's formal accounts. Money moving in careful, consistent increments in directions that served Markus exclusively, and that Adrian, over months of patient and solitary documentation, had traced back to his partner without a single exception. He had not confronted Markus. He had made the careful choice document completely, reach certainty, act only when the picture was total and the position was unassailable. It was the right choice by every measure of precision and caution, and it was the choice that ran out of time before it could ever become action. On a Friday evening in early November, Adrian called his twin brother 3 times. 10:15, 10:23, 10:41. 3 calls, each one ringing out into the noise of a nightclub where Alex was exactly where he had planned to be, with his brother's name on a lit-up screen that felt, in that specific moment, like an interruption that could reasonably wait. After the 3rd call, Adrian sent a message, 11 words. If anything happens to me, it is someone close. Do not trust easily. Alex saw the notification in the parking lot of the party sometime after midnight, put the phone back in his pocket, went home, and went to sleep. And the next morning, his father called with 4 words in a voice that no longer sounded like his father, and Alex sat on the edge of his bed and read the 11 words that had been waiting since the night before and understood, with the kind of understanding that arrives fully formed and permanent, exactly what he had done by letting the phone ring. The private burial was attended only by the family. No announcement, no public acknowledgement. Robert Mercer managed the official story through channels he controlled. Adrian was abroad on an extended business matter, stepping back from the company temporarily for personal reasons. Clara Whitfield was told nothing. She was not at the graveside. She was not in the room. She was across the city in a quiet house, moving through wedding preparations for a ceremony. Alex stood at the grave after the others left and stayed in the cold for a long time without moving. And then he made the only decision that felt like it meant anything. He was not going to the police with 11 words and a feeling. He was not going to wait in his apartment for a system that did not yet know a crime had occurred to begin moving on its own. He was going to use the one advantage he had that no investigator, no attorney, and no official process could replicate. He had his twin brother's face. He could walk into Adrian's life and be believed. Not forever. Not without risk. But long enough to find what Adrian had been building toward when someone decided he needed to stop. He moved into the penthouse. He answered Adrian's phone. He sat at Adrian's desk and studied his brother's communication records at night to reconstruct his professional voice and his decision-making patterns from the inside out. And every morning, Clara Whitfield walked into that kitchen with the natural ease of a woman moving through a space that belonged to her life, and Alex smiled at her with his twin brother's face and watched her the way Adrian had watched the financial records carefully, without showing what he was looking for, waiting for the picture to develop completely before he moved. The first thing Clara did in the morning was giving him coffee, the usual routine. He then went to the office, sat in Adrian's chair, and began the work of understanding what his brother had understood, and what his brother had been afraid of, and what his brother had been 3 weeks away from doing when someone took the remaining time away from him. Markus noticed the change within the first week and said so without softening it. He studied Alex across the desk with the careful attention of a man looking at something familiar that has been altered in a way he cannot immediately name. And he said, Adrian had changed. Alex said perhaps he was finally growing up. Markus did not look convinced. He looked like a man running a quiet calculation behind a neutral expression, and Alex noted that too, and added it to everything else he was assembling in the hours after the house went quiet, and the performance could be temporarily set aside. When the accounting department flagged the transfers formally, and the audit process began to build institutional momentum, it was Alex in Adrian's chair who received the reports and called Markus in to explain them. The conversation that followed told Alex several things at once. Markus was not surprised. He was defensive, but in the composed, already prepared way of a man who had considered this possibility in advance, rather than the unraveling way of someone caught without a position. He said Adrian had approved every transfer. He said Adrian had insisted on the timing. He said he had done exactly what had been asked of him. And then he asked, with a directness that carried real edge, whether Adrian trusted him or not. Alex said nothing immediately, and the silence said everything Markus needed to hear. The formal process moved, and Markus was escorted from the building on a Tuesday morning and said, as security walked him toward the door, that Alex thought he wanted to kill him. Not a confession. The furious, wounded declaration of a man who genuinely could not accept the accusation, which was either an exceptional performance or an expression of actual innocence. And Alex, watching the police car leave from the balcony with Clara standing beside him, could not fully determine which one it was. Clara said she had always known something was off about Markus. She said it without hesitation, without searching for words, without the rough edges that genuine retrospective realization tends to produce. Alex said nothing. The elevator footage had already been reviewed, already submitted, already cleared as part of the formal audit following Markus's arrest. But Alex asked to see it again because living inside his brother's habits for weeks had given him his brother's instinct return to the primary source. Look at the raw material. Do not trust the summary. He asked the technician to process every available angle. He asked for the reflection in the elevator to be isolated and enhanced. And as the image sharpened and the shadows resolved into definition, a figure appeared in the background of the frame that the original review had moved past as noise. Long hair, feminine build. Present in that penthouse at 11:47 on the night Adrian died, in a location she had never disclosed to anyone, in a building she had never placed herself in on any account of that evening. The technician said it should not be there. Alex asked for the audio. The static was stripped back layer by layer, and underneath it, faint and urgent and unmistakably a woman's voice, came 6 words. Adrian, please, just listen. Alex sat back from the monitor and did not speak. He looked at the frozen frame of that figure for a long time, and then he thought about Clara on the balcony, saying she had always known something was off about Markus, and the smoothness with which she had said it. He thought about the wedding invitations on the dining room table. He thought about 11 words on a phone screen, and 3 calls that rang out into the noise of a nightclub on a Friday night. And one by one, with the finality of things that cannot be unknown once they are known, the pieces locked into the shape they had always been. He drove to her house that night and stood in the dark across the street and watched the light in the second-floor window, the one she always left on, the one she had told him told times. Adrian times she kept burning because she was afraid of waking up in a room that was completely black. He thought about that now. The fear of darkness, coming from her. The light moved. A shadow crossed the curtain in the unhurried way of someone who does not know they are being observed. And Alex stood very still on the opposite pavement, with his hands in his coat pockets and Adrian's phone in his right hand, and the audio file still open, still loaded. 6 words sitting in the silence of the street like something alive. Adrian, please, just listen. The question that would not stop forming was not whether she had done it. The image in the elevator had resolved that. The question, the one that had been assembling itself since the first morning in that kitchen, since she laughed and talked about her day every night, Since she had stood on the balcony and offered up Markus without a single hesitation or a single rough edge, was how long she might have been planning it. Was it before the proposal? That was what he could not stop returning to, or during 14 months. The coffee order? Or before they even met? The thought of it made his jaw tighten. His phone lit up, her name on the screen. He looked at it for 3 full seconds. The light in the window had stopped moving. He answered. The silence on the other end lasted exactly as long as it took for a person who had been watching the street from behind a curtain to decide what kind of call this was going to be. "You're outside," she said. Not a question. Alex did not move, did not speak. Across the street, the curtain shifted, and he knew without looking directly that she was looking at him, and that she had been looking at him for longer than the call had been open, and that the voice he was hearing was not the voice that said, "Times I've always known something was off about Markus," and was not any of the voices she had used in the weeks since he had walked into his brother's life with his brother's face. It was the voice from the audio file, stripped back, underneath the static. "How much do you know?" she said, and the light in the window went out. The street was very dark, and Alex Mercer stood in it, holding a phone with a dead connection, understanding for the first time since the graveside that his brother had not been afraid of what he had found. He had been afraid of what she would do when she realized he had. Before you go, drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. We love hearing from you. If this story had you hooked, hit subscribe and tap the notification bell so you are the first to know when the next part drops. And if that ending hit you the way it was meant to, the like button is right there. We will see you in the next one.